I'm Brandon Miller, and you are listening to Coach. This weekly series dives deep into the world of Clifton strengths and how they impact your daily life. Hear from certified strengths coaches on the ins and outs, quirks, and characteristics of all 34 strengths and 4 domains and how they play out in real life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Season 2 of the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. I'm joined today by Lisa Schmith, and we are talking about the strength of responsibility. Now, many of you listening today probably share this strength somewhere in your top 10 or 15 of your Clifton Strengths report. And if it isn't one of your dominant strengths, I assure you, people in your life, somewhere in your personal, professional sphere, even just your extracurricular, there are people who have this particular strength. And so Lisa is coming to us with a wealth of experience with strengths. She is long tenured in the public sector. We both happen to live in the state of California. I think she might be in the better half of it, though, down in SoCal. Lisa, that's a nice place to come from. Beautiful beaches. And you can find Lisa on LinkedIn, and that's Schmith, Lisa Schmith, that you can find her there. She does love to work with other coaches. So if you're listening today as a strength coach, something that Lisa says sparks a question, you want some insight, very generous with her time, very happy to meet with you, chat about where your journey might be. And if you happen to be in Southern California, very much encourage you to reach out to her. She helps to spearhead a network of strengths coaches that are aligning to provide resources to each other, to expand each other's opportunities. You can meet her there. And if you are listening today and you happen to be in the public sector, and you can classify that as local or county or city or state or law enforcement, because Lisa's got a background there. If you're law enforcement, federal, Lisa is passionate about helping you as a manager advance in your career. So with that, there's your intro, Lisa. Welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you very much, Brandon. And I'm really excited to be here. And one of my all-time favorite talent themes, responsibility.
I love talking about this one. And as Lisa and I discussed before the show, we're going to do our very best, listeners, to isolate. We're going to really try to think about this strength on its own because, as I said, this is such a common one. And I think it's 2 or 3 on the all-time list of strengths that you're going to run into globally. And I think in some countries, it's number 1. It's a very common strength. And so, Lisa, let's dive right in. Tell us about the responsibility strength.
This is my number 2. And I think we often hear that, it's attached to having psychological ownership. For me, it's that and so much more. It's very much a driving force for me. I don't have a whole lot of executing themes, so it's very one that I know is responsive, self-sacrificing. There's loyalty, trustworthiness that comes along, but also it helps make me very independent, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think independence is one of the key drivers of this strength, right? It's that I'm good for it. If you ask me to do something, you don't need to ask me twice. You don't need to double check my work. You can trust me that if I say it's going to happen, I've already committed it to ownership. You could never be harder on me than I'm going to be on myself. And so if it's 3 a.m. and I wake up remembering I didn't do something, you can be guaranteed I will climb out of bed. I will go get it done before I can go back to sleep. Any accuracy to that, Lisa?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's important to mention that it's really giving people with responsibility that true authority to follow through on that commitment or whatever that goal or task is.
When it comes to responsibility at its core and thinking about some of what it contributes and what it needs to be successful, and we're going to dive into the free resource for our listeners right now. How to Be a Good Teammate to Me is the resource. I have printed a PDF version. We will send you the electronic copy, of course. And in this resource, we describe the contributions and the needs of each of the strengths. So, Lisa, I am going to list them for us. I'm going to start with the contributions of responsibility, and I'm going to ask you to weigh in on each of these and maybe highlight a couple that really resonate, or if we missed some, we could add to the list, which has been the case anytime I've done this. So here we go. Commitment to do things the right way, psychological ownership. We just both said that. Good at establishing and maintaining timelines, dependability, quick to volunteer, commitment to integrity, establishes accountability.
Yes, 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 yes. So it's interesting here. You just really that self-sacrificing for me. This is very service oriented, right? And I think that sometimes is a challenge of it. We want to help others, but very much want to do things right and honor those commitments of getting it done to the point of potentially burnout and negative impact on yourself for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering if some of these jump out. The maintaining timelines was interesting for me as a contribution.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, yeah, maintaining timeline, yes, and I'm going to stay up all night to make sure it's done if I need to.
I love to say for this particular strength, when you think about spotting it, right? Spotting it as a professional, a coach, a manager. These are the people that you want on your group assignment.
Absolutely. And I want to be surrounded with, when I have it myself, I want to be very much surrounded with people who have it.
Yeah, because in school, you always knew if you had this person, because no matter what you just said, if they had to stay up the whole night to get it done to make sure we all got the right grade, they're going to do it. It's going to happen.
And it's funny you say that because you're triggering childhood for me, Brandon. And this was spotted at age 5 in my kindergarten memo, where my kindergarten teacher put in there that I'm dependable and responsible. But I had perfect attendance, second all the way through high school. Never was one of those problem children. I always did my homework. I did what was expected of me for sure. And then think about, okay, at the age of 22, I was in the police academy and I found myself a job that I very much had tremendous authority for being a peace officer at that age, with complete freedom to patrol around the whole pretty much state of California. And I'm like, who does that? People with responsibility, right? They'll hold themselves accountable to be able to just really the independence and be sort of a self-starter.
Yeah, and given authority because of it. They're giving authority, accountability, autonomy because they're good for it. I appreciate that you mentioned the piece of I was always there, right? I had perfect attendance, and you remember that because to someone with high responsibility, I was asked once how you know if you're hiring someone with high responsibility without asking if they have high responsibility. And one of the ways I was told to do this is if I were to ask you, tell me about a time that you failed to meet an expectation or deadline. And the way a listener would know is that this person would painstakingly tell you about the one time something was missed, and there would be such emotion around it, like, but it was only one time, and it was because of these circumstances, and I can't believe I missed it. I'll never do that. And like the just ownership. And if you're sitting across from that person, they might have responsibility in their top strengths, because that is how it comes across, this depth of ownership and this willingness to step into the position of I will be accountable and responsible, not only for me, but I will be for us. And I will own the outcomes. And it's for that reason, I think we can both agree it's sought after. This is a sought after strength.
I totally agree with you. And since you're talking more of like leadership or higher level, I think certainly people with responsibility have the ability to really be credible leaders when they do what they say they're going to do. So that I know personally, my ability to take on assignments that were all for the greater good, but I took big projects going on, but I owned them, I followed them through, and it allowed me to advance in my career and have a great sense of impact and have a team that came along with me to be involved and nurture others towards that outcome. So
And I know in today's introduction we focused on the today version, but I think it is of note that Lisa has had an extensive career in government, and you made your way up to a pretty high level of authority and responsibility. You were accountable for budgets, you were accountable for a large team of people. And anytime you and I have talked about these things, those were very serious commitments to you. You very much wanted to have a strong reputation. And I've had the opportunity to go back into places where you've been, and you are received with very high regard. And I think that that reputation that you've earned, I think, isn't that a part of this strength? Is that there is a strong consideration to manage my reputation well. I want to be known as a credible person. I want to be known as someone who I follow through. I do what I say I'm going to do. You can trust my word is good.
absolutely, Brandon. And when I retired from state government and had the agency I retired from want me to go back to lead, as more of a consultant part-time basis, their develop and lead their leadership development mentoring program, I didn't know about strengths until that time. And I realized, just thinking about our conversation today, that the reason I sought out my strength certification was really my responsibility to that commitment, which was bringing a way for other mid-level managers to really have a sense of who they are and get that awareness so they can lean into their own strengths to be able to be more authentic and credible. So it was responsibility that really got me introduced to strengths, I should say, or made me pursue it and get certified. And
That's great. Okay, we're gonna unpack the needs of the strength. So again, listener, if you're interested in learning about the resource, how to be a great teammate to me, Brandon at 34strong.com is where you'll send an email and we'll make sure you get your version of this. Okay, here we go. Needs. So clear expectations. I think we can both check mark that one, right? Because if I'm going to ask you to be accountable and responsible, you need to know exactly what you need to know. And wouldn't it be fair to say that if it's not clear, you will keep pushing back until it is clear? Would that be something you would say is a mark of that strength?
absolutely, I don't want to do it wrong. So that you got that going against you is I want to do it right. Big thing is wanting to do it right.
Oh, listen to that one, everybody. I'm going to pause right there. You got to listen to that. I do not want to do it wrong. Ding, 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 hallmark of high responsibility. I don't, because again, this strength is so incredibly connected to what they do, and doing it right is very important to them. And so if you are managing, let's pause for a manager moment. If you are managing someone with high responsibility, making sure your expectations are explicit. They're very clear to them. And Lisa, I think we could both agree one of the challenges of management is that I might give you instructions in the way I understand it best. This is why we know that strengths are really helpful, because if I do that, I might just give you the high points and just go ahead and fill this in, go get it done. And the responsibility is looking back going, no, no. What do you want? When do you want it? How do you want it? And you will get it. Leave this ambiguous, and this is not going to work best. Would that be accurate from your experience?
Absolutely. And I think people with high responsibility, yes, they want to have that authority to run forward, but feedback along the way is very important. And that affirmation still, I don't need, I just making sure it's like keep helping me get closer to what is expected, that works really well for me. So that feedback more so than like daily check-ins to give me milestones, if that makes sense, Brandon.
Oh, it sure does. It sure does. Okay, here's another need for this strength. Help saying no.
Oh, this one is cracking me up because before I had a name to my strengths, really, when I was in that high level position, it was a Senate confirmed position with California, where I intuitively remember, and I'm probably dating myself, where you go into the ice cream shop and you pull that number, now serving number, whatever, whatever. So I actually in the outside of my office, and I was having lots of people come to me for things at that time. I created my own, you know, sort of number system where now serving number or whatever, but I retained the number one because that was my symbol on my desk that reminded me I really needed to take care of myself in this process.
That's good. So, hey, if you're listening today and you have high responsibility, self care is important, friends.
Amen to that. That is, that burnout is real. And really what helped me is learning that distinction about being responsible to someone or for someone. That's a huge difference. So when you're responsible to someone, you're accountable for actions, decisions, and results. And certainly when you're responsible for someone is really that more of that care and protection. So I don't want to say that's a mistake, but I think I went down the wrong way when I started coaching, knowing that I wanted the best for everybody and I owned things that were really not mine to own.
Well, I think this is an important need is that help saying no because as people with high responsibility show themselves, and as you said, it happens very young, we all get wise to it. And what we realize is if you need help moving, you call that person. If you need help with a special project, you assign this person. If you have something critical that can't be missed, you bring them in on the project. And it is unfortunate but real. So it's like it's the catch, right? It's gosh, I want to be trusted. I want to be your go-to. I want to be your number one resource. But if I overcommit myself, then I can actually start to create lag within myself. I can actually start to harm. And where I've heard this really take shape is that important space between my professional reputation, my professional, growth and development, and then who I am in my personal life. That tension can become imbalanced if not carefully monitored.
Oh, I like the way you said that. It reminds me of the oxygen mask. I have to do those things that are going to allow me to show up 100%, be better and be best. And if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not prioritizing, if I'm not asking for help, if I'm not getting, how can you be the best in yourself?
We need, let's see, other needs. Getting it right. I think we covered that really well. To be aware of the clear outcome. We said that. Here's one that we're going to have to park on for a minute. So we need autonomy, not micromanagement. So as someone with high responsibility, how does it feel if the boss micromanages you?
Oh, I'll jump ship and go elsewhere. No, I can't. It's to me it feels like I'm not trusted. They don't believe in me, which is contradictory to the whole being of responsible, right? So no, definitely not my happy place being micromanaged. So that autonomy, I mean, we talked about it. I want that big picture. I want that end goal, but I mean, I'm capable. I'll get there. I mean, we just talked about self-care, not to be a contradiction, but I'm going to treat it like it's my own.
So I've said this comment in trainings in the past, and I took a risk because I don't have this as a top 10 strength that sits at right at 15 for me. But being in the role that I am as a CEO of a company and a father of a large family and grandkids, so I accept a ton of responsibility in my life and I don't shy back from it. And so it's one that I relate to really well. And interestingly enough, when I put this out there once, the response was really interesting from people around how they perceived what I said, and it was, as much as a person with high responsibility hates to be micromanaged, I mean, perceives it as I would even classify it as insulting. I would classify it as, almost demoralizing. Why would you have to check on me? Of all people, I don't need it. So as much as there's that feeling there, almost every single manager I've ever worked with struggles to not micromanage if they have high responsibility. And I'm curious, has that been your experience as one who served in a role of leadership through your career?
Absolutely. I think the very reason why people are getting promoted is because of their responsibility. So here they are in a place, and now perhaps they're overseeing a team for the first time. And I think that's the most difficult transition for people to make, because you're not doing it by yourself. So the conversations that I have that I think helped is really getting grounded in that, being responsible to what is my lane as a boss to be able to empower my team without micromanaging, in terms of I'm accountable to you. But it could be anything from maybe taking on a new project for the team when the team is already, has a full plate, and pausing and having a conversation to see where people are. So instead of grabbing something and perhaps assigning where there's already too much going on, but it's really learning to, I don't want to say let go, but empower, right? But yeah, that's definitely that micromanagement you see quite often with people, but it's a hard one, right? Because the tendency is, if it's not being done, I'm going to pick things and make sure it gets done for, from a team concept.
And I think it comes down to this need, which is others to follow through on promises or commitments. And I have noticed with this particular strength, and I've said it this way with a little chuckle, people with high responsibility do not suffer fools well. They like foolishness and tomfoolery and, all kidding aside, right? Like, all right, I can laugh, I can have a good time, I can enjoy work, and let's get down to business. Let's make, when it's time to work, it's time to work. Let's get it going. Laugh, smile, jokes, innuendo, fun, all those things that can make, work life enjoyable. But at the end of the day, people with high responsibility just really need you to get it done. If you say you're going to do it, please do it, because that accountability part's real. I mean, it's a real strength of this strength, is that if you want true accountability for the group, true accountability for the team, for the company, someone with high responsibility is going to get that done. Like, we will be accountable. There will be a day that the results will be counted. It will be added, and we will know how we did.
Yeah, that sense of duty is huge. And I really think when leaders and managers themselves with this responsibility set those high expectations of themselves, I think it really sets a high standard for the team. But certainly encouraging team ownership. But it goes back to some of the basic tenets of really checking in and making sure others have their needs too, right? Especially if they have other talent themes.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And so I would say, I have a funny story on this one. I had a manager once who happened to also have a long career in the state of California as a leader. And at one point in his career, he was, and this was a military experience, was given the responsibility to stand watch, and had a shift where he had to stand watch, and under no circumstances could he leave the watch. And he tells the story that he had made the mistake on one of his night watches where he overconsumed liquids, and that in this particular case, the backup wasn't going to show up. And so, faced with the conundrum of, do I leave my post, or do I have to absorb, the liquid a different way? And I can vividly remember this person saying, so I just had to let my pants absorb the liquid because I couldn't leave my post. And I can remember hearing that going, wow, like, wow, like that is serious. And to this individual, it wasn't even a question. It was, I committed to stay on watch. These were the parameters. I was told under no circumstances I could go. I wasn't able to be relieved because of a different circumstance. So I had to absorb what I had to absorb. And I can just remember the impact that had on even just the reputation of that leader, certainly within the organization, but also amongst, a closer in group of, wow, when this person says they're going to do what they say they're going to do, this is next level. And I think that's the power of responsibility, right? It's really bring that out.
I think, back to that sense of duty, and luckily I haven't ran into that conundrum before, Brandon, but I could totally relate when just really it's whatever you're going to do, you want to do it right, and you're going to give your all to get it done at your own expense sometimes, right?
That's right. Let's hit this last need because I think this is a big one. So pay attention, everybody, to this one. And if you have high responsibility, and even importantly, if you work with someone with high responsibility, please listen. A need of this strength is quick forgiveness when they make a mistake, because people with this strength will, for sure, absolutely, no question, you can't be harder on them than they will be on themselves. True, Lisa?
Oh, absolutely. That shame that comes along, and really, but there's an overwhelming sense of, I don't want to say a fear of failure that I think happens, that duty to individuals with responsibility, but it's almost like an anxiety about failing to meet expectations. So that if I'm like going, that's like one of the worst things. If I fail to meet what's expected, and then you can see, what happens when you don't have clear expectations, just that little dance that's hard for somebody with responsibility when it's not, because they want to meet those expectations.
Absolutely. I am a football coach, and I do appreciate that this strength can be spotted really quick. And I can always tell when one of my players has high responsibility with how they react when they fail on a play. And so in our last game, one of our key guys, like this guy is a two-way starter, very important to the success of our team. And on offense, he happened to get wide open and had a pass thrown his way that hit him in the hands and fell on the ground. And the kid was devastated. Now, all season long, I have noticed that anytime this kid makes a mistake, it takes him a while to bounce back because he absorbs that. It hurts him. And we've had to really, we as in coaches, really emphasize this is a normal part of the process in sports. You're going to make mistakes. In that case, you tried to run before you had the ball because you were so open, you knew you were going to score. It happens. Professional athletes do this. It's going to happen. And so we had to adopt a term for him, which is turn the page. If you don't turn the page, you're going to be stuck here, and you're going to spin on this mistake, and the guilt and shame is going to debilitate you from getting on to the next pass. And what I've noticed in sports, especially for American football, is when that happens, the quarterback comes right back to that person, and you try to come right back to him to go, "Hey, come on, turn that. We know what you could do. That's why you're here." But in the business context, right, in the workplace, in the home with kids, this is an important one to understand that you got to help. You got to get them past that, because if they live there long, it's actually really unhelpful for them.
And I think you're right on point. Related to that fear of failure, I think it can hinder decision making, and you may get in the workplace a lead to paralysis. I know on things I screwed up on, my response was try to do something bigger to, in essence, make up for what I screwed up on. But I know, like from a coaching standpoint, reframing mindset around failure and really growth focused, that personally has helped me and others that I've worked with. And it's a hard one, but when you can master it, I mean, this is one of those talent things that I like to say I learned to love, but I used to have a love-hate relationship with it. So I think the more that we can get to those places where we can reframe some of our mindset around it to be more healthier, it's going to be more productive and certainly a greater strength.
That's great. Dear listeners, thank you so much today for joining us as we talked about responsibility. And Lisa, thank you for taking your time to lend your expertise, your credibility, your career, and certainly your knowledge about responsibility.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And I want to reiterate, if you're a coach, especially if you're in Southern California or you're a manager specifically, but not limited to the public sector, you can find Lisa on LinkedIn, and that's Lisa and spelling Schmith for her last name, Lisa Schmith, and she'd be happy to chat with you, learn more. If you would like to receive our resource, How to Be a Great Teammate to Me, you can send an email to Brandon at 34strong.com, and we will happily get that sent over to you. With that, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Strengths Whisperer Season 2, Coach to Coach.
Thank you for tuning in to the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. Please feel free to reach out to Brandon to partner with 34 Strong for collaboration opportunities to serve your employees or clients together. If you are a strengths coach, lead a strengths-based team, or are a fan of strength, we invite you to receive our complimentary resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, Understanding My Contributions and Needs. Email Brandon_Miller at 34strong.com to connect, and he will gladly share this resource that will continue to unlock the power of strength.